The 2014 New Zealand general election took place on Saturday 20 September 2014 to determine the membership of the 51st New Zealand Parliament. Voters elected 121 members to the House of Representatives of New Zealand, with 71 from single-member electorates and 50 from party lists. Since 1996, New Zealand has used the mixed-member proportional voting system, giving voters 2 votes, one for a political party and one for their local electorate MP. The party vote decides how many seats each party gets in the new parliament. A party is entitled to a share of the seats if it receives 5% of the party vote or wins an electorate. Normally, the House has 120 seats, but extra seats may be added where there is an overhang, caused by a party winning more electorates than seats it is entitled to. The one-seat overhang from the 50th Parliament will remain for the 51st Parliament, after United Future won one electorate when their 0.22% party vote did not entitle them to any seats. A total of 3,140,417 people were registered to vote in the election. Around 92.6% of all eligible New Zealanders. A total of 2,446,279 votes were cast, including a record 717,579 advance votes, more than double the number cast in 2011. Turnout was 77.90%, higher than the 2011 election, but the 6th lowest since women gained the vote in 1893. The centre-right National Party, led by incumbent Prime Minister John Key, gained a plurality with 47.0% of the party vote and 60 of the 121 seats. On election night counts, the party appeared to hold the first majority since 1994 with 61 seats, but lost 1 seat to the Green Party on the official count. National re-entered confidence and supply agreements with the centrist United Future, the classical Liberal ACT Party, and the indigenous rights-based Māori Party to form a minority government and give the 5th national government a 3rd term. The Labour Party, National's traditional opponent, lost ground for the 4th election in a row, receiving 25.1% of the party vote and 32 seats. The Green Party dropped in the party vote from 11.1% to 10.7%, but remained steady on 14 seats. New Zealand First meanwhile increased its vote share to 8.7% and seat count to 11. The Māori Party, ACT, and United Future retained their parliamentary representation, despite losing party votes. The Internet Mana Party did not return to Parliament after its only representative in Parliament, Hone Haraira, was defeated in his electorate of Tai Tokerau. Background, MMP Review. A referendum on the voting system took place in conjunction with the 2011 election, with 57.8% of voters voting to keep the existing mixed-member proportional voting system. Under the terms of the Electoral Referendum Act 2010, the majority vote in favour of retaining MMP meant that the Electoral Commission had the task of conducting an independent review of the workings of the MMP system. The Commission released a consultation paper in February 2012 calling for public submissions on ways to improve the MMP system, with the focus put on 6 areas: basis of eligibility for list seats, by-election candidates, dual candidacy, order of candidates on party lists, overhang, proportion of electorate seats to list seats. The Commission released a proposal paper for consultation in August 2012 and published its final report on October 29, 2012. In the report, the Commission recommended the following: reducing the party vote threshold from 5% to 4%. If introduced, the 4% threshold should be reviewed after 3 general elections. Abolishing the 1 electorate seat threshold. A party must cross the party vote threshold to gain list seats. Abolishing the provision of overhang seats for parties not reaching the threshold. The extra electorates would be made up at the expense of list seats to retain 120 MPs, retaining the status quo for by-election candidacy and dual candidacy. Retaining the status quo with closed party lists, but increasing scrutiny and selection of list candidates to ensure parties comply with their own party rules. Parliament should give consideration to fixing the ratio between electorate seats and list seats at 60-40. Parliament has the right to decide whether to implement any changes to the system, which had been largely unchanged since it was introduced in 1994 for the 1996 election. In November 2012, a private member's bill under the name of opposition Labour Party member Ian Lees-Galloway proposed implementing the first two recommendations. It was drawn from the member's bill ballot on November 14, 2013, but by the time Parliament dissolved for the election, it was still awaiting its first reading. In May 2014, Judith Collins and John Key announced that no inter-party consensus existed on implementing the recommendations of the Commission, so the government would not introduce any legislation. 50th Parliament. Following the 2011 general election, the National Party entered into confidence and supply agreements with ACT, the Māori Party and United Future to continue the fifth national government. These arrangements give the national-led government a majority of 7 seats, with 64 on confidence and supply in the 121-seat parliament. The Labour, Green, New Zealand First and Mana parties are all in opposition, but only the Labour Party constitutes the formal opposition. At the 2011 election, the National Party gained 59 seats, the Labour Party 34 seats, the Green Party 14 seats, New Zealand First 8 seats, Māori 3 seats, and Mana, ACT, and United Future gained 1 seat each. One change was made to the allocation during the Parliament. In 2012, Brendan Horan was expelled from the NZ First caucus but continued to sit as an independent, meaning NZ First had 7 caucus MPs for the remainder of the Parliament. On May 31, 2013, the Electoral Commission deregistered United Future after it could not prove it had the 500 financial members required for registration. The party successfully re-registered on August 13, 2013, but in the interim its sole MP, Peter Dunn, sat in the House as an independent. On June 13, 2014, ACT's sole MP John Banks resigned from Parliament after being found guilty of filing a false electoral return for his 2010 Auckland mayoral campaign. As his resignation came within 6 months of the election, his seat was left vacant, meaning ACT had no representation in Parliament until the general election. Dates: on March 10, 2014, Prime Minister John Key announced that the election would take place on Saturday 20 September 2014. As in 2011, the Prime Minister announced the date early, although only 6 months in advance compared to the nearly 10 months in 2011. Traditionally, the election date is a closely guarded secret, and announced as late as possible. A general election must take place every 3 years, and parliaments generally run the full 3-year term unless an early election is called or the election date is set to circumvent holding a by-election. Voting for the previous election occurred on Saturday 26 November 2011. In 1950, New Zealand introduced a legal requirement to hold elections on a Saturday, and beginning with the 1957 election, a convention evolved to hold general elections on the last Saturday of November. The events of 1984 upset this convention, and it took until the 1999 election for election dates to creep gradually back towards the conventional timing, only for an early election to occur in 2002. By the 2011 election, the conventional last Saturday of November was achieved again. If the convention had been followed in 2014, the election would have taken place on November 29. In October 2013, Prime Minister John Key hinted that the election would take place before November. The setting of the election date became further influenced by Australia inviting New Zealand to attend the G20 summit in Brisbane on 15 and 16 November 2014, with the possibility that some leaders might make flying visits to New Zealand. Ideally, major diplomatic visits and engagements should be avoided during the election period, as they can distract politicians from campaigning and voters may see them as an attempt to influence the election result. Key dates relating to the general election include, electorate boundaries. Per the Electoral Act 1993, the South Island must have 16 general electorates, with the number of North Island general and Maori electorates calculated by dividing the respective population in each group by 1/16 of the South Island general electorate population, within a tolerance of 5%. At the 2011 election, the North Island had 47 general electorates and the Maori roll had 7 Māori electorates, totaling 70 electorates across the country. Following the March 2013 census of population and dwellings and the 2013 Maori electoral option, the Representation Commission redrew some electorate boundaries. In October 2013, Statistics New Zealand announced that there would be one additional North Island general electorate, bringing the total number of North Island general electorates to 48 and the overall number of electorates to 71. Growth in Auckland saw 3 existing electorates, Auckland Central, Helensville and Hunua, exceed their quota by at least 14%. Population changes in Christchurch following the 2011 earthquakes meanwhile saw the Christchurch East electorate drop to 23% below quota, while the urban fringe electorate of Selwyn grew to 14% above quota. The Representation Commission, tasked with redrawing the electorate boundaries, released its final electorate boundaries on April 17, 2014. The largest changes took place in northern and western Auckland, with 2 new electorates, Upper Harbour and Kilston, created, while the existing Waitakere electorate was dissolved. Upper Harbour is based around the Upper Harbour Bridge, stretching from Werra Valley to Massey, and was predicted to be a safe national seat. Kilston is based around the western Auckland suburb of the same name, stretching from Aracia to Waterview, and was predicted to be a safe Labour seat. Kilston's creation took population from the Mount Albert electorate, which in turn allowed Mount Albert to take Westmere and Grey Lynn from Auckland Central, bringing Auckland Central within quota. Helensville's over-quota has been solved by the creation of the Upper Harbour electorate, while Hunua has lost the area south of the Auckland region boundary to Waikato to bring it within quota. In Christchurch, the under-quota Christchurch East and Christchurch Central electorates took population from Waimakariri in the north and from Port Hills in the south. While it was correctly predicted Christchurch East would remain a Labour seat, the prediction that the marginal Christchurch Central electorate would move in Labour's favour proved false. The seat instead swung in National's favour. The loss of Labour-leaning urban parts of Waimakariri made it a safer seat for National, which increased its majority from 642 votes in 2011 to 2,133 in 2014. The Horsewell Oakland's Westmoreland area moved from Selwyn into Port Hills to compensate for Port Hills' loss and to bring Selwyn within quota. As Horsewell Oakland's Westmoreland are predominantly national-leaning, it caused the Labour-held electorate of Port Hills to become more marginal. In Wellington, the Labour-leaning Hutt South electorate took the national-leaning Western Hill suburbs of Lower Hutt from Oehariu and Ramutaka, in exchange for Ramutaka taking the Labour-leaning state housing suburb of Naini. The changes allowed Oehariu to take Wadestown off the over-quota Wellington Central electorate. This was correctly predicted to make Hutt South more marginal. Labour's Trevor Mellard retained the seat in 2011 by a 48-25 vote majority, and this reduced to just 709 in 2014. Retiring MPs, 22 existing members of Parliament did not stand for re-election, including 14 members of the governing National Party. After his trial for filing a false electoral return, John Banks resigned from Parliament on June 13, 2014. Although Walker contested Hutt South, she did not expect to win and was not on the party list. Although she had previously announced her intention to stand down at the election, Shanks resigned from Parliament at the end of 2013. Although he was previously announced as New Zealand's first candidate for East Coast Bays and 13th ranked on the list, Williams was removed as a candidate before the election. List-only MPs, Bill English announced in January 2014 that he will retire as the electorate MP for Clover Southland and instead stand as a list-only MP. Contesting parties and candidates. At the close of nominations, 554 individuals had been nominated to contest the election, up from 544 at the 2011 election. Of those, 71 are list-only, 114 are electorate-only, and 369 are contesting for both list and electorate seats. Just under 30% of candidates are female, up from 27% in 2011. Political parties registered with the Electoral Commission on writ day can contest the general election as a party. Each such party can submit a party list to contest the party vote, and can have a party election expenses limit in addition to limits on individual candidates' campaigns. At writ day, 19 political parties had registered to contend the general election. At the close of nominations, 15 registered parties had put forward a party list to the Commission to contest the party vote, up from 13 in 2011. On May 27, 2014, the Mana Party and Internet Party announced an agreement to field a combined party list at the election under the Internet Mana Party banner. Their electorate candidates, however, can continue to campaign under each individual party's banner. While registered, the One Law for All party and the Alliance did not put forward party lists. Non-registered parties contending the election include Climate Party, Communist League, Economical Phoenix Party, Expatriate Party, Human Rights Party, Money Free Party, Patriotic Revolutionary Front, Independents are Standing in Botany, Dunedin North, Epsom, Helensville, Hutt South, Mount Albert, Northland, OEHARIU, OETAKI, Rongotai, Tauranga, Wellington Central, West Coast Tasman, Ikaroa-Waiti, Tāmaki Makaurau and Tai Tokerau. Campaigning, campaign expense limits and broadcasting allocations. During the 3-month regulated period prior to Election Day, parties and candidates have limits on how much they may spend on election campaigning. It is illegal in New Zealand to campaign on Election Day itself. For the 2014 election, every registered party contending the party vote is permitted to spend $1,091,000 plus $25,700 per electorate candidate on election campaigning during the regulated period, excluding radio and television campaigning. A party contesting all 71 electorates is therefore permitted to spend $2,915,700 on election campaigning. All electorate candidates are permitted to spend $25,700 each on campaigning over and above their party's allocation. Registered parties are allocated a separate broadcasting budget for radio and television campaigning, and broadcasting time on Radio New Zealand and Television New Zealand to make opening and closing addresses. Only money from the broadcasting allocation can be used to purchase airtime. The actual production costs of advertisements can come from the general election expenses budget. The Electoral Commission sets the amount of broadcasting funds and time each party gets. The initial election broadcasting allocation was announced on June 6, 2014. 2 parties who were allocated broadcasting funds and time failed to register by writ day, so their funding and allocation of time for closing address were redistributed to the remaining parties. ACT did not receive any redistributed funding as they had lost their only MP since the initial allocation. Broadcasting funding was further redistributed on August 29 after the Alliance failed to register its party list. This coincided with the Conservative Party's bid to receive a court-mandated increase in broadcasting funds and time, which was taken into consideration when funding was redistributed for the second time. Third-party promoters, such as trade unions and lobby groups, can campaign during the regulated period. The maximum expense limit is $308,000 for those groups registered with the Electoral Commission, and $12,300 for unregistered groups. Those third-party promoters registered for the election include: all campaign expense limits are inclusive of GST. Campaigning timeline: early campaigning, before August 20, 20 July Euro election hoardings and billboards begin to appear. July 31 Euro the 50th New Zealand Parliament concludes with the adjournment debate. August 10 Euro Labour officially launches its election campaign in Auckland, making a promise of free GP visits and prescriptions to pregnant women and those aged under 13 and over 65. August 13 Euro Nikki Hager releases the book Dirty Politics, based on leaked emails from blogger Cameron Slater, alleging various ways National Party figures participated in Slater's attack politics. Among other claims, Hager suggests one of John Key's staff members accessed the Labour Party online database, which journalist John Armstrong compared to the Watergate break-in. First week, 20 August 24 20 August Red Day, radio and television advertising begins. August 22 the party radio opening addresses air on Radio New Zealand National at 20:06. August 23 the party television opening addresses air on TV1 at 19 o'clock. August 24, National officially launches its election campaign in South Auckland. It promises to allow KiwiSaver members to withdraw member tax credits to help buy a first home, double the KiwiSaver first home deposit subsidy, and increase the limit on house prices to qualify for the subsidy. Internet Mana officially launches its election campaign in Auckland. Kim.com makes a comment that he once hacked the German credit rating system and put the Prime Minister's rating to 0 because he didn't like the guy. When media try to interview .com, Internet Party Press Secretary Pam Corkery intervenes, calling one reporter a puffed-up little shit. Second week, 25 August 31 27 August the National and Conservative parties admit they had installed motion-activated cameras to monitor their election hoardings, which had been subject to persistent vandalism. Among the more creative vandalism are Labour Auckland Central candidate Jacinda Ardern as a pirate and Conservative leader Colin Craig as a member of KISS. August 28 the first TVNZ leaders debate between John Key and David Cunliffe takes place. August 30 Judith Collins resigns as a minister due to recurring controversies throughout her tenure as Minister of Justice. Her resignation comes following an accusation by Winston Peters that her office came to him with a possible leadership challenge against John Key, and the revelation of an email from blogger Cameron Slater in 2011 that suggests Collins may have undermined a director of the Serious Fraud Office. Third week, 1 September 7, September 2 the press leaders debate between John Key and David Cunliffe takes place in Christchurch. Key claims a win after Cunliffe could not answer whether family homes held in a trust would be exempt under Labour's capital gains tax policy. September 3 advance voting opens, with Labour leader David Cunliffe and Internet Party founder Kim.com among the first to vote. September 5 the TVNZ multi-party leaders debate takes place. The leaders participating are Russell Norman, Winston Peters, Peter Dunn, Te Araroa Flaville, Hone Harira, Jamie White, Brendan Horan and Colin Craig. September 7 ACT officially launches its election campaign at Ellerslie, Auckland, making promises to repeal the Resource Management Act and abolish the Overseas Investment Office if elected. Fourth week, 8 September 14. September 8 an expletive-filled email is sent by Mana Party leader Hone Harira sends to party members. In it, Harira claims the Internet Party is putting too many resources into promoting cannabis law reform rather than into Mana's flagship policy of providing breakfast and lunch to students at low socio-economic decile schools. September 10, the TV3 leaders debate between John Key and David Cunliffe takes place. The Electoral Commission announces it will not allow photography in polling booths, after several incidents where advance voters had taken selfies with their completed ballot paper or behind voting screens and posted them to social media. Posting an image of a completed ballot paper within 3 days of Election Day is illegal, and can attract a $20,000 fine. Final week, 15 September 19 15 September, the Internet Party organises the Moment of Truth, an event held in Auckland to release information related to New Zealand's involvement in the Five Eyes network. Kim.com, Glenn Greenwald, Edward Snowden and Julian Assange all participate. A Māori television Reid research poll of the Tai Tokerau electorate is released, showing Labour candidate Kelvin Davis on 37%, only 1% behind incumbent Mana Party leader Hone Harira. Harira is relying on an electorate win to allow Internet Mana to enter Parliament without needing to get 5% of the party vote. September 16. The publishers for US rapper Eminem files a lawsuit with the Wellington High Court, alleging the National Party had infringed copyright by using an instrumental version of the song Lose Yourself in its television advertisements without permission. The party rejects the lawsuit, with campaign manager Stephen Joyce saying the song was pretty legal, having been purchased from an Australian music library. September 17. The second TVNZ leaders' debate between John Key and David Cunliffe takes place. Key reiterates for supporters not to split the party vote, saying if you want steak for dinner tonight, go and buy steak. Don't buy a lamb chop. If you want a national government, party vote national. Cunliffe says he would work with the Greens and NZ First after the election, which based on the 3 News Read research poll released the same day would outpoll National and its ragtag bunch of right-wing weirdos. Both leaders ruled out working with the Internet Mana Party after the election. September 18. Conservative leader Colin Craig's press secretary, Rachel McGregor, resigns, allegedly calling Craig a manipulative man. Craig only learns about the resignation when questioned about it by the media, and says the resignation most likely relates to burnout. National leader John Key and NZ First leader Winston Peters publicly endorse Labour candidate Kelvin Davis in Tai Tokerau. In response, incumbent Hone Harira says that National and NZ First are trying to sway the election against the wishes of voters. September 19. Last day of campaigning. Party closing addresses air on TV1 at 19:30 and Radio New Zealand National at 20:06. Opinion polling. Opinion polls have been undertaken periodically since the 2011 election by Fairfax Media, MediaWorks New Zealand, the New Zealand Herald, Roy Morgan Research, and Television New Zealand. The graph on the left below shows the collated results of all 5 polls for parties that polled above the 5% electoral threshold at the 2011 election. The graph on the right shows results for parties that polled between 1% and 4.9%, or won an electorate seat, at the 2011 election, as well as parties contesting the 2014 election which have polled over 1.0% since 2011. After the November 2011 election, National remained around the 47% mark in polling until the end of 2013, when its popularity slowly rose to 49% by the last week before the election. Labour recovered from its 27.5% election result to cross the 30% mark in March 2012, before levelling out around 33% for most of 2013. From around November 2013, Labour support started slipping, down to 25% by election day. The Green Party and New Zealand First did not move much from the 11% and 5% marks respectively until the last few weeks before the election, where they each gained 1 to 2%. No other party has polled above the 5% threshold, although the Conservative Party came close on individual polls in the weeks before the election. Results. Preliminary results were gradually released after 19:00 on September 20, with the targets that all advance vote results were available by 2030 and all preliminary results were available by 2330. The preliminary count is done within the polling booths, and only includes ordinary votes. It does not include any special votes. Special votes include votes from those who enrolled after the 20th August deadline, those who voted outside their electorate, hospital votes, and those voters enrolled on the unpublished roll. All voting papers, counterfoils and electoral rolls are returned to the electorate's returning officer for a compulsory recount. This also includes approving and counting any special votes, and compiling a master roll to ensure no voter has voted more than once. Official results, including all recounted ordinary votes and special votes, were released at 14 o'clock on Saturday 4 October 2014. Parties and candidates had 3 working days afterwards to apply to the district court for a judicial recount. On October 7, 2014, Mana Party leader Hone Harira filed for a judicial recount of the Tai Tokerau electorate. The recount is expected to take €5 days to complete. Overall results. Non-parliamentary parties, 8 parties did not gain 5% of the party vote or win an electorate seat, entitling them to no representation in the 51st Parliament. Despite speculation that the Conservative Party might cross the 5% threshold, it did not. Nonetheless, it secured an increase in its share of the party vote, winning 4.0%. The Aotearoa Legalised Cannabis Party received 0.46% of the vote, twice as many as the lowest polling party to gain a seat, United Future. Electorate results. Prior to the election, the National Party held the majority of the electorate seats with 41. Labour held 22 seats, Māori held 3 seats, and ACT, Mana and United Future held 1 seat each. There are 2 new electorates in 2014, Kilston and Upper Harbour. National held steady on 41 electorates, Labour gained 3 seats to hold 27 electorates, Māori lost 2 seats to hold 1, and ACT and United Future held steady with 1 seat each. The Mana Party lost its only seat, after sole incumbent MP Hone Harira lost Tai Tokerau to Labour's Kelvin Davis. In the 2 new electorates, Labour's Carmel Sepulani won Kilston, while National's Paula Bennett won Upper Harbour. Bennett previously held Waitakere, which was disestablished prior to the election in favour of the 2 new electorates. In 11 electorates, the incumbents did not seek re-election, and the seats passed to new MPs of the same party. In the remaining 3 electorates where the incumbent did not seek re-election, the electorate changed allegiance. In Napier, Labour's Stuart Nash won the seat of retiring National MP Chris Tremaine, caused by large vote splitting between National candidate Wayne Walford and Conservative candidate Garth McVicar. In Tāmaki Makaurau and Tai Tokerau, Labour won both seats off the retiring Māori Party co-leaders Peter Sharples and Tariana Turia. Of the 55 electorates where the incumbents sought re-election, only the aforementioned Tai Tokerau changed hands. Key notes. List results. The next list candidates for each party are Maureen Pugh for National, Marion Street for Labour, Marama Davidson for Green, Ria Bond for NZ First, and Chris Mackenzie for Māori. Unsuccessful list candidates. Changes in MPs. In total, 23 new MPs were elected to Parliament and 4 former, non-sitting MPs returned. 8 MPs stood and were not re-elected. In addition, Bill English went from being an electorate MP to a list MP, while Kelvin Davis went from being a list MP to an electorate MP. Among the new MPs was 24-year-old Todd Barclay, elected for National in Clutha Southland, who became not only the youngest MP in the new Parliament, but also the first New Zealand MP to be born in the 1990s. As a comparison, he was only 4 months old when outgoing Clutha Southland MP Bill English was first elected at the 1990 election. New MPs, Darroch Ball, Todd Barclay, Andrew Bailey, Maresh Bindra, Chris Bishop, Matthew Ducey, Sarah Dowie, Marama Fox, Piani Hinair, Brett Hudson, Barbara Curager, Clayton Mitchell, Todd Muller, Joan O'Naylor, Pamjit Palmer, Shane Reety, Adrian Urohi, Jenny Salazar, Alistair Scott, David Seymour, James Shaw, Stuart Smith, Fletcher Tabuteau, returning MPs, Ron Mark, Stuart Nash, Peter Paralone, Carmel Sepulani, defeated MPs, Carol Beaumont, Hone Harira, Brendan Horan, Raymond Ho, Asanati Taylor, Mona Mackey, Marion Street, Holly Walker. Post-election events, leadership changes. On September 30, 2014, Labour leader David Conliffe stepped down and forced a party leadership election. Andrew Little won leadership of the Labour Party. Local by-elections, 2 sitting mayors of local councils were elected, Joan O'Naylor of Palmerston North City and Ron Mark of Carterton District. Both have announced they will stand down as mayors if elected to Parliament, resulting in by-elections being called in Palmerston North and Carterton. Financial market reaction. Within an hour of the New Zealand Exchange opening on Monday 22 September, the headline NZX 50 index jumped 1.27%, led by the country's 5 main electricity generator retailers, Contact Energy, Genesis Energy, Meridian Energy, Mighty River Power and Trust Power. During the previous Parliament, the National Party partially privatised Genesis, Meridian and Mighty River, reducing the Crown's share from 100% to 51%. In response, the Labour and Green parties promised to reform the wholesale electricity market if elected, which would have provided cheaper retail prices by cutting how much generators could profit off their wholesale prices. Election offences. Under Section 197, 1G, of the Electoral Act 1993, it is illegal for any person to publish anything that may influence voters to vote in a particular way between 0000 and 1900 on election day. The rule applies equally to traditional media and social media, and those found breaking the rule can be fined up to $20,000. After the election, 24 people were caught out by the rule and referred to police. Among those were former All-Black Jonah Lomu, current All-Black Israel Dag, and Olympic rowing medalist Eric Murray, who were caught tweeting their support for the National Party during the gag period. A complaint was made against the Civilian Party for failure to include a promoter statement on their Facebook page as required by Section 204F of the Electoral Act. Bernie Fendel, party leader, noted that the omission of the promoter statement was inadvertent and immediately placed a promoter statement onto the page after being instructed to do so by the Electoral Commission. Notes. References. External links: election coverage at the New Zealand Herald, election coverage at Radio New Zealand National, election coverage at Television New Zealand.